The sun hanging over Praca do Comércio felt like a soft blanket on my skin, a sharp contrast to the ice-cold wine resting in my hand. Then my phone shattered the peace. It was Amber. She wasn't just crying. She was screaming. "They're calling the police," she shrieked. "There are strangers in my condo." I didn't need to ask any questions to know exactly what she'd done. She'd used the emergency key, the one meant only for fires or floods, to move herself and her boyfriend into a property I had sold 2 weeks earlier. I didn't gasp. I didn't apologize. I simply took a slow sip of my Vinho Verde. Before I tell you how my family tried to hijack my life from across the ocean, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love knowing who's part of this community. To understand why I didn't scream, why my pulse stayed calm, you need to know where I came from. You need to understand the architecture of guilt I lived inside for 32 years in Seattle. The rain there didn't just wash the streets. It seeped into the drywall of my life, making everything feel heavy, damp, and impossible to move. My parents, Jeffrey and Holly, didn't build a home on love. They constructed something based on utility. In their blueprint, I wasn't a daughter. I was a load-bearing wall. My job was to stand silent and strong, holding the roof up so my sister Amber could dance freely in the living room without ever getting wet. They called it family duty. I called it a long con. The evidence wasn't subtle. It sat parked in the driveway. On Amber's 16th birthday, she was handed a brand new crossover SUV. $36,000. I remember the exact price because I saw the paperwork on the kitchen counter while making my own lunch. When I turned 16, Jeffrey gave me a bus schedule and a lecture about the carbon footprint of unnecessary driving. He called it character building. It didn't stop with cars. The imbalance was a budget line they assumed I was too stupid to calculate. For Amber, there were private tutors, expensive SAT prep, and eventually a private liberal arts college with a tuition bill totaling $215,000 over 4 years. They paid every cent. They said they were investing in her potential. For me, they said they were investing in my resilience. I worked 3 jobs while earning my degree. I scanned groceries until 2 in the morning, slept 4 hours, then went straight to class. When I graduated with honors without a dime of their help, they didn't celebrate my grit. They celebrated the fact that I was low maintenance. That was their favorite compliment. "Lauren is so low maintenance. Lauren doesn't need us." They were right. I didn't need them, but they desperately needed me. Over time, I became a UX researcher, someone whose entire career revolved around analyzing behavior and optimizing systems. Naturally, I turned that lens on my family. That's when I realized I wasn't a person to Jeffrey and Holly. I was a diversified portfolio. I was the safety net meant to catch Amber whenever she inevitably fell. Which brings us to the condo. My condo. I bought it 2 years ago in a sleek downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the sound that cost me every bonus and stock option I'd earned over a decade of grinding. I bought it as a sanctuary. But the moment my parents walked in for the housewarming, I saw it in their eyes. They weren't seeing my home. They were seeing a family asset. Holly ran her hand across the quartz countertops. "This is so much space for just one person, Lauren. Almost wasteful, isn't it?" Jeffrey stepped onto the balcony, scanned the view and nodded. "This is a good investment. It's nice knowing we have this in the family." They didn't see my name on the deed. They saw a guest room for Amber when she got bored of her roommates. They saw a liquidation option if Jeffrey's business had a bad quarter. They saw a resource to harvest whenever the golden child got hungry. So when the job offer from Lisbon arrived, I knew exactly what would happen. I knew if I left that condo empty, even for a month, they would colonize it. They'd guilt me into letting Amber house sit, and within a week she'd be redecorating. That's when I realized the guilt I carried. The crushing obligation to share everything I earned wasn't natural. It was a cage they built around me, brick by expensive brick. And there's only one way to escape a cage that strong. You don't unlock the door. You bulldoze the building. The Lisbon offer wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline. But when I read the email, my first reaction wasn't excitement. It was panic. Who would pay Amber's rent if I left? Who would handle my parents' endless tech support calls? Who would fix everything? That panic was the wake-up call. I sat in my ergonomic chair, staring at Seattle's gray skyline, and ran the simulation. My competence hadn't saved my family, it had crippled them. By fixing every crisis, covering every bill, and always being reliable, I had created a vacuum of competence. I'd made it so easy for them to be helpless that they forgot how to survive. Amber wasn't just entitled. She was atrophied. My parents weren't just users. They were enablers who had outsourced parenting to their eldest daughter. If I told them I was moving, the guilt trip would be immediate. They'd beg me to keep the condo just in case. They'd say, just until Amber gets back on her feet. And I knew myself. If they pushed hard enough, the old architecture of guilt would activate, and I'd cave. I'd turn my sanctuary into a crash pad. I'd be paying HOA fees from Portugal while Amber threw parties I wasn't invited to. So I chose silence. A discreet real estate agent listed the place off-market. I packed my life late at night, disguised as routine decluttering. When they asked about the condo while I was abroad, the lie slid out easily over Sunday dinner. I hired a property management company, I said. They'll rent it to corporate clients. Strict lease. No family. My mother frowned, fork frozen midair. A management company? That feels so impersonal. Strangers in your home. It pays the mortgage, I replied flatly. 2 weeks before my flight, I sat across from the Coopers at a long mahogany table. They were young, both architects, eyes bright with excitement. They talked about nurseries and dinner parties. They saw a future there. I signed the papers, handed over the keys, and felt a physical weight lift from my chest. It wasn't just a sale. It was an amputation. I told no one. I boarded the plane to Lisbon with 2 suitcases and a one-way ticket, leaving behind a ghost house that no longer belonged to me. I thought I'd outsmarted them. I thought I'd escaped the vacuum. I didn't realize how desperate they were to fill it. I sat in Praca do Damião staring at my phone. Amber's hysterics had faded, replaced by reality. My parents had driven her to the condo. They unlocked the door. They helped her carry boxes into a stranger's home. They overwrote my management story. Not because they knew it was a lie, but because they didn't care if it was true. In their minds, my property was family property. My boundaries were suggestions. I called Ryan Cooper. My hand shook, not from fear but from cold, controlled rage. He answered immediately. Mr. Cooper, I said steadily. I'm so sorry. Your sister is screaming at my wife that this is her house, he said tightly. The police are 5 minutes away. Let them come, I said. Put me on speaker. Then Amber's voice, shrill, frantic. You can't kick me out. Mom and Dad said I could stay. Lauren said it was okay. I never said that, Amber, I replied, my voice carrying across 4,000 miles of distance. The silence was absolute. Lauren, she whispered. Mom and Dad don't own that condo. I did. And I sold it. You are trespassing. Sirens wailed in the background. Mr. Cooper, I continued, please tell the officer I've confirmed the sale. No one in my family has permission to be there. If she refuses to leave, you have my full support to press charges. You can't. Amber shrieked. Mom and Dad will kill you. They can try, I said. Put the officer on when they arrive. I spent 20 minutes evicting my own sister from another continent. I listened as the officer reviewed the deed I emailed. I heard Amber's defeat when she chose to leave voluntarily. When the call ended, I didn't cry. I ordered another glass of wine. The sun dipped over the Tagus, turning the water gold. My chest felt light. It was the sensation of a bridge finally burning completely. Then my phone lit up again. Incoming video call, Dad. It was time for the exit interview. I accepted. Jeffrey and Holly filled the screen, sitting rigidly on their beige sectional. Amber was wedged between them, blotchy and clutching a tissue. They looked like righteous indignation personified. We demand an explanation, Jeffrey barked. I think you're confused, I said calmly. I didn't break into a stranger's house. You set a trap, Holly shrieked. You humiliated your sister. Traumatic, I repeated. Is trespassing. Amber's lucky charges weren't pressed. That was my decision. You should have told us. Amber wailed. I sold my property because I moved continents, I said. Not everything is about you. Family helps family. Jeffrey shouted. That condo was a resource. That's when I really looked at them. They weren't hurt. They were furious their resource was gone. The ATM had stopped working. I owe you nothing, I said. No warning. No apology. But I am sending you an invoice. For what? Holly gasped. For the locksmith, the cleaning crew, and the hotel I booked for Amber, which is the last financial help you'll ever get from me. You wouldn't dare. Check your email. I ended the call. My hands shook with adrenaline. I had just fired my parents. Then another email arrived from my former boss. Urgent. Ryan Cooper wasn't just the buyer. He was the CFO of Pinnacle Group, my father's biggest client. The war had gone nuclear. When Jeffrey called again, his voice was unrecognizable. You have to help me, he begged. The account is gone. He wanted me to lie, to destroy my credibility to save him, to burn myself to keep him warm. The old architecture trembled. Then I looked at Lisbon. No, I said softly. I won't lie for you. This is what happens when you treat people like resources. You're selfish, he cried. Yes, I said, and it tasted like honey. And I'm finally happy. I hung up. I blocked them all. 6 months have passed. Silence. Peace. Jeffrey's firm collapsed. Amber has a job now, a real one. Receptionist. Not glamorous, but hers. The vacuum worked. I sit now in Alfama, espresso and pastel de nata in front of me. I'm alone. No emergency contacts. No family obligations. For 32 years I thought solitude was punishment. Now I know better. Feels like victory. Like breathing after leaving a room that was running out of oxygen. I didn't just survive my family. I outgrew them. I am selfish. I am solitary. I am free. If this resonated with you, hit like, share it with the responsible one who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about choosing yourself. Thanks for listening.